After 3 years of the computer work, Persephone wanted to move on to a managerial position within the bank. She decided to seek out information about which college courses she needed in order for her to make this advancement. She made the mistake of mentioning that fact to a white coworker who made sure it got to the ears of Kathy Worthy, Persephone's red-headed, young, rotund white supervisor, the same supervisor who boasted to anyone that gave a damn that she lived in Dearborn Heights, Michigan. To most black people, Dearborn was a code word for racist. Although Dearborn did have the Fairlane shopping mall, which Persephone patronized often, even when some black community leaders called for a boycott after a few incidents there, Persephone could not remember ever wanting to socialize in any of Dearborn's many lavish night spots. Most black folks knew better, and the police had an even worse reputation of making black folks feel welcome in Dearborn. In the 6 month period following Persephone's confidential conversation with her white coworker, Miss Kathy started giving Persephone write-ups on petty mistakes and zeroed in on Persephone's, as she stated in the first reprimand, consistent tardiness. If you considered being an occasional 15 minutes late once a month to be consistently tardy, oh well. Persephone thought she would try the buddy approach with Kathy to try and gain some sympathy with the true story of her plight. Persephone requested a private meeting, and it was there that she explained the perils of riding on the raggedy DOT bus system's coaches. Persephone thought she might be gaining a little sympathy from Kathy, and they seemed to be in agreement until Persephone made the mistake of comparing the DOT bus system to the immaculate, well maintained, smooth riding SEMTA bus system that only serviced the suburbanites. Uh-oh, thought Persephone, when Kathy turned a deep red as Persephone made the comparison. One thing a black person should not do in a situation like this, thought Persephone, a little too late, is to allude to the fact that white folks got it better than black folks. A little less than 2 months later, after arriving at least 30 minutes early each morning since their meeting, there was a blizzard of a snowstorm. The weatherman predicted it would be a record storm. Persephone stood at her usual spot on the corner of 7 Mile and West Outer Drive, bundled up in all her winter gear, and waited 2 hours on a bus that never came. Her intention had been to call her job when she got home and let the office know that she wouldn't be able to make it. But when it became apparent to Persephone that the pain in her toes and fingers wasn't just a mild case of frostbite, she begged a neighbor to drive her to the emergency room, where they eased the pain the best they knew how, and told her that if she had stood any longer than a half hour more in that storm, she would have surely lost at least a couple of toes. Even with the doctor's excuse, 3 weeks after her return from recuperation, they terminated her employment. Persephone could tell by the gleam in Kathy's eye that she told her to gather up all her as she told her to gather up all her belongings and report to the personnel office immediately, that Kathy thought she'd won a personal war. She could remember that when she reported to work that day, the other girls in the office avoided eye contact with her. Apparently, word had already leaked out that she was being fired. There was Mr. Pocklington she had to see before she was officially dismissed. This was the same Mr. Pocklington who had given her and maybe 34 other people that they were hired in at the same time as Persephone their orientation speech. Now, Persephone got to witness firsthand how he kicked someone to the curb. After a brief, dry speech about his regret that her employment at the bank was being terminated, He seemed to have extra time on his hands, or maybe he was like that with all the soon to be ex employees, and he seemed to want a little conversation. In any event, Mr. Pocklington chose that time while seated at his big wooden desk with all the little brass executive toys and bowls and strings that decorate his desktop, to lean back in his big cushioned chair of fine soft tan leather and absently clean the lenses on his glasses. He asked Persephone a couple of absently cleaning the lens of his glasses. He asked Persephone a couple of generic questions, trying to gain her confidence in some shallow way. Then he asked her, "Did the other employees make you feel inferior in any way? Like a peon, maybe?" Obviously, he was doing this to cover their asses in any future racial discrimination suit. Persephone patiently waited for Mr. Pocklington to return his glasses to his face, smooth down the gray hairs around the back of his ears, and fold his liver-spotted hands on the top of his grand desk. Then she replied, "No, Mr. Pocklington, no one ever made me feel inadequate or inferior, unless, of course, I agree with their judgment. And I have yet to meet someone who qualifies as my superior, intellectually or otherwise." Mr. Pocklington looked at Persephone as if she'd slapped him. He excused her soon after with a crisp goodbye and good luck, and Persephone answered him with, "Same to you, sir." She surprisingly didn't have a problem getting a midday bus home. There weren't nearly as many people on the bus then as there were during the usual startup and quitting time mania. Thus, Persephone began her first official half day of unemployment. The only luck that had come her way since that last day at CMB came maybe 6 weeks into her unemployed life, in the way of the last check mailed to her from CMB. Persephone noticed when she first opened up the check that it had a curious combination for the last 3 digits of the check number, 369. 369 played for shit row. The Three Wise Men was one of the numerology books that people in her neighborhood used to interpret their dreams and to find the right 3-digit number combination to play the lottery with. Persephone had referenced her copy so often through the years that she knew a lot of the numbers by heart. 567 was Money Row, 731 Spiders and Good Luck, and 369 played for shit. Not boo-boo, not doo-doo, but S-H-I-T. Persephone looked at these numbers from the check and thought them to be a sign. She played 369 straight and in the box for $5, which would make her number bill with Miss Jones down the street $10 more than her usual weekly bill of $30. Persephone had watched the drawing that evening as she sat at the desk in her room. She first gave the television a peripheral look as the ball settled on the number 3. She gave her full attention when the next number popped up was 6. But by the time that last ball came to rest on the 9, Persephone was out of her seat, cheering loudly. So much so, in fact, that her mother yelled upstairs to find out if Persephone was losing her fucking mind. After Miss Jones received her 10% cut, Persephone had over 5,000 much-needed dollars tax-free. "Thank you, Jesus!" Persephone remembered whispering when Miss Jones placed the bulging envelope of money in her outstretched hand. She didn't waste any time spending it either. That, of course, went against her mother's wishes. "Girl, you better take that little money and pay off some of them credit card bills you got coming in this house. Your big ass think I'm gonna pay for that shit. You must be out your fucking mind," was how Persephone's mother argued the strong points of what Persephone should do with her found money.